Devaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaisavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Pariganasaitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sate Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Krupa Sindhubheva Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, everyone. So, welcome to our Bhagavad Gita study. So, today we'll be completing chapter 6 and the final section of this first third of the Bhagavad Gita, chapters 1 through 6. So, excited. And so, we've been discussing this yoga ladder. And now we're going to get to the top of the yoga ladder. This Bhakti Yoga. Yoginam api sarvesha margate nantaratmana shaddavan bhadate yo mam same yuktakto mata. So this is bringing us to the culmination of that, and of course we know we progress in this ladder on the basis of knowledge and purification. So we'll start with verse number 24. Krishna says, one should engage oneself in the practice of yoga with determination and faith and should not be deviated from the path. One should abandon, without exception, all material desires born of mental speculation and thus control all the senses on all sides by the mind. So we see again the key theme of this Ashtanga yoga process is controlling the mind. So determination and faith are key to progress. Srila Prabhupada quotes this verse from Nectar of Instruction, Utsaha Nischaya Dharya Tatat Karma Pravartanat. Right, that these things are very important in assured success. Right? Shadbir Bhaktir Pranashyati. That one is assured success if they are enthusiastic, determined. Right? And Prabhupada translates Utsahan as to endeavor with intelligence. So to be determined in anything, we need two things. We have to have faith in the goal, and we have to have faith in the process. Otherwise, we cannot be determined. If we have faith in the goal, but not in the process, we will falter. So we need to have faith and confidence in both the goal and the process. I may have faith that it's good for me to lose weight. But then if I'm doing some exercise and I don't have faith that this process will actually work, what happens? We stop. So you have to have faith in both the goal, I would like to quit this activity, whatever it might be that we know bad for us, and there's a process to stop it, whatever it might be. But I have to have strong faith that stopping it is good for me, and the process I've chosen is also good for me. So like this, one must be determined with this faith in the goal and the process. And in Krishna consciousness, when we say utsaha nischayat, what this confidence means, or faith, that Krishna consciousness is the only means to happiness. And the process of sadhana bhakti is the only means to awaken Krishna consciousness, because Krishna's mercy will come. So we have confidence in both. Like that, one can go forward. And why do we need determination? Well, because the results, particularly in this process, this Ashtanga Yoga process, they do not happen immediately. It takes a long time. Just like if you go to the gym once, you don't get the immediate result of losing weight. It takes time. So the longer the process, the more faith you need, both in the goal and the process. So this process requires a lot of faith and a lot of determination, because the results will take some time. They'll not be instant. So now our determination and our faith, however, is not sufficient alone for success. And Prabhupada quotes in this verse, in the purport, the example of the sparrow. So we must understand that we're still always dependent on the mercy of Krishna. But our determination is what invokes the mercy of Krishna. When Krishna sees us determined in an endeavor, then he bestows his mercy. But our determination alone will not yield the result. The sparrow, having lost her eggs to the ocean, was determined to drain the ocean with her tiny beak. She was determined. But could she actually drain the ocean with her beak? No, she needed the mercy of Garuda, who came and retrieved the eggs. So it is the determination that invokes the mercy. So our job is to show great determination, but also recognizing our determination alone will not make the result happen. We need Krishna's mercy. So we remain determined with faith in the goal and faith in the process, and Krishna's mercy will be invoked, and thus will find success, just like the sparrow found success. So the determination here that we're speaking about specifically is to control the mind, which in turn must control the senses by all sides. So the intelligence, we know, sits atop the mind and senses to control the mind. So alignment of these three and keeping them aligned is very important. Okay? 25. Gradually, step by step, one should become situated in trance by means of intelligence sustained by full conviction, and thus the mind should be fixed on the self alone and should think of nothing else. So we see here that it is a step-by-step process. Krishna is saying it's a gradual process. It doesn't happen overnight. Again, hence the determination needed. And here we see again the importance of controlling the mind, pulling the senses away from the sense objects. So what is key to controlling the mind, we see in this verse? Strong intelligence and conviction. So we must know the importance of why to control it. What is the benefit? So we must have the intelligence of knowing why I should stop, meat eating, or intoxication, or gambling, or illicit sex. The four regulator principles, when they present them, at first they become difficult. But if we understand the why, then we have some ability to stay determined. So the intelligence is there. And then the intelligence helps build conviction. So we know the how and the why with our intelligence, and that strengthen builds conviction. And why do we need conviction? Because there'll be temptations. Temptations to fall to those different sense objects. So the conviction helps us endure the temptations. And then there is no danger of falling to the sense desires. And Srila Prabhupada makes that comment towards the end of the purport. So, now Krishna says in this verse, fixed on the self, capital self, meaning the super soul, alone, and should think of nothing else. So here we see, not only should one not do sense gratification, one should not even think about it. One should only think of Krishna. At least in our preliminary stage, when the thought comes to go do some unauthorized activity, at least we should not do it. But ultimately, to make success in this process, one cannot even think about that activity. And thus that makes it very hard. So again, just to review quickly, the 8 stages of this Ashtanga Yoga, as we talked about last week, this yama and niyama, do's and don'ts. Then that brings us to the asana, the sitting positions. From there, pranayam, the breathing control to start to subdue the mind. Then pratyahara, all the senses become withdrawn. And from there we begin to enter the different meditative stages, dharana, dhyana, and finally samadhi, the full trance. So these are these 8 stages we are discussing. 26. From wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under control of the self. So Krishna says that the mind is wandering, flickering, unsteady. I'm sure none of us have ever experienced that. Yes, we know the mind is, very wandering, flickering. So what should one do? The yogi must bring the mind in control to have success. If you succumb to the mind's desires, then it's very dangerous. So if the mind wanders, don't be discouraged. It will. Just keep bringing it back. Krishna is saying, from wherever the mind wanders, due to its flickering nature, just bring it back. So while we're chanting our japa, the mind travels. It travels extraordinary distances, actually, both in time and space. It goes to the crazy corners of the world. It goes to the crazy moments in our life that are like decades ago. We're thinking, just bring it back. Because it's going to happen. Finally, what is the result of having the mind fixed on Krishna in this way? The yogi, whose mind is fixed on me, verily attains the highest perfection of transcendental happiness. He is beyond the modes of passion. He realizes his qualitative identity with the Supreme, and thus he is freed from all reactions to past deeds. So the result of fixing the mind on Krishna, this Vishnu Shmaranam, highest perfection of transcendental happiness. We know that remembering Krishna, never forgetting him, is the foundation, the principle of all of our different Vedic processes. Right? Smarta Veda Satitam Vishnu Vishmarta Vanajotati Sarva Veda Nishadvishwar Etayor Eva Kinkaraha. That one should always remember Krishna and never forget him. All the other Vedic principles should be servants to these 2 principles. Always remember Krishna, never forget him. And why? Because we see here, attains the highest perfection of happiness. And Prabhupada references a verse from the 18th chapter, Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma, that when one is self-realized, Brahma Bhuta, one becomes fully joyful. Prasannatma means fully joyful. So we become very happy. Okay. Now, the results of the perfectly executed Ashtanga Yoga process. This is from verse 28 to 32. We're going to see what happens when we realize the super soul, going beyond understanding I am spirit soul, but now realizing the super soul. 28. Thus, the self-controlled yogi, constantly engaged in yoga practice, becomes free from all material contamination and achieves the highest stage of perfect happiness in transcendental loving service to the Lord. So when the mind is controlled, we stay out of all nonsensical material activities. The mind controlled means no more material activities, free of all material contamination. So that is one of the results. And again, the highest stage of perfect happiness. But now the prior verse spoke about realizing the qualitative identity with the Supreme. That is referring to the impersonal conception, the oneness with Brahman. Here, now, Krishna is bringing it up to the level of Paramatma realization. That one understands the relationship. As soon as there is service, there is relationship. So this word Brahma, samsparsha, means service. Right? There's a transcendental contact with the Supreme, as Prabhupada explains in the purport. So now we are speaking about that relationship with Paramatma, because there is a partial realization. We're at the second stage of realizing. So this is where this happiness achieves. 29. A true yogi observes me in all beings and also sees every being in me. Indeed, the self-realized person sees me, the same Supreme Lord, everywhere. So one of the symptoms of the perfected Ashtanga yogi with this realization is one sees the Supreme Lord everywhere. How? Seeing the super soul present within everyone. They see the super soul within themselves, and thus understand the super soul is present everywhere, even in the dog or the high-class Brahmana. The super soul is neutral to all, present with everyone. Now, Srila Prabhupada comments in the purport that we're going to see in the next chapter that Krishna is going to show how one can see the Lord everywhere, even externally, in matter, because matter is none other than Krishna's inferior energy. So we're going to see not only the super soul present in everyone, but we'll see that Krishna is present everywhere through his energies. And the yogi in this condition, the reason he sees equally, because he sees that the condition of that spirit soul in that particular body is only a function of their past karma. Because of their past karma, they have taken this type of body, but still, super soul is there and present. And their reaction, the yogi with this knowledge, their reaction is similar to what we spoke about earlier in the prior chapters, this equanimity and sameness. When someone is mean to us, someone is rude or does something we don't like, you see, that is just their conditioning. This nature is there due to their past activities, past actions, and it invokes mercy upon that person, not hatred or, retribution or revenge. No, one becomes calm. Well, this is due to their conditioning. This nature is there, past activities. Let us pray for them. That is the mood we should try to invoke as we encounter, different types of persons. A mosquito comes and bites us, we should not kill it. I think that is his nature, to take some dinner. Be nice if we could be so controlled. 30. For one who, I'll rewind a second. If we can't at least do that, when different individuals come to us, particularly in devotee association, maybe they're not reciprocating with us in, the way we really want. Be tolerant. Be patient. Say, this is conditioning. And pray for them. And pray for us. And they all can purify from these natures. So don't be disturbed by some, maybe inappropriate activity. But be mindful to pray. And understand the source of that inappropriateness has nothing to do with them as spirit soul. It's simply a function of their past activities. 30. For one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost, nor is he lost to me. Wow. Never lost? That's an amazing experience. So can we ever really be separated from Krishna? How is that possible? Everything is Krishna's energy, even matter. This computer, table, it's all Krishna's energies. So we are constantly in association with Krishna. And he's going to show us that in the 7th chapter, how to see it that way. But that is a fact. He is present everywhere. So seeing Krishna everywhere is what allows us to be anushilanam, constantly engaged in service. It seems hard. Well, I have my material duties. Sometimes they say, I have my material duties, spiritual duties. What is material? It's none other than Krishna's energy. So in intelligence, one knows that even that can be used in Krishna's service. So to be constantly engaged is very practical. If one sees Krishna everywhere and everything in him, then it becomes very easy. And it is very beautiful because we can see Krishna's presence. We were speaking last night on a related topic. You go and observe, some great national park and some beauty and think, wow, this is Krishna's inferior energy manifested in this beautiful way. You can observe it and appreciate it in relation to where it comes from, Krishna. This beautiful flower. Wow, how Krishna has created such a beautiful living entity and then offer it to him. So we can even observe inanimate and animate things in relationship to Krishna with knowledge. And I love this statement Prabhupada makes in the purport. He says here, Krishna consciousness is the development of love of Krishna. Could we have a more concise statement? Krishna consciousness is the development of love of Krishna. That is the whole goal. Developing love of Krishna. I love that statement. That is post-it worthy. Post-it note worthy. I have a lot of post-it notes, huh? 31. Such a yogi who engages in the worshipable service of the Supersoul, knowing that I and the Supersoul are one, remains always in me in all circumstances. So the yogi sees the Supersoul and Krishna as one, right? Krishna is speaking to Arjuna, remember the context, and he's saying, engages in the Supersoul, knowing that I and the Supersoul are one. Ekatvam. So, what is the relationship between Krishna and the Supersoul? The Supersoul is an expansion from Krishna. The four-armed Vishnu, Shirodakshai Vishnu, is one of the expansions coming in the chain. And that reflection of Shirodakshai Vishnu is seated in everyone's heart as Paramatma. And Prabhupada says in the purport that Vishnu is not different from Krishna. And thus Krishna is saying, I, in this verse, I and the Supersoul are the same. They're the same person, different features. So this is an important part. Now, how Vishnu can be present in the hearts of every living entity? How can one be present everywhere? Well, We have the example of when the moon is shining and you put 10 pots, the moon is reflected, and sorry, there are water in each pot. The moon is reflected in each of the 10 pots. It is one moon, but it is present in all of the pots. Similarly, the super soul is one, Lord Vishnu, but he is present in every living entity. It is a reflective expansion of this Vishnu. And Krishna is saying, I and the super soul are ekatvam, one. So, very important point here. And I wanted to read a couple of statements Krishna makes, or Prabhupada makes in the purport. He says here in the purport that Krishna consciousness is the highest stage of trance in yoga practice. So again, establishing this Ashtanga yoga practice is being described here, but Krishna consciousness is the highest stage. Okay? Then he goes on to say a very important point. Nor is there a difference between a Krishna conscious person, always engaged in a transcendental loving service of Krishna, and a perfect yogi engaged in meditation on the super soul. Now one may wonder why Srila Prabhupada is making this statement. Again, I'll read it again. Nor is there a difference between a Krishna conscious person, always engaged in transcendental loving service of Krishna, and a perfect yogi engaged in meditation on the super soul. So all along Prabhupada is saying bhakti is easier, safer, more practical. But here he's saying, nor there is a difference. So we must understand why Srila Prabhupada is saying that. Because some think that a yogi meditating deep in the forest, oh, this must be some spiritualist. Oh, this person is actually going to the office, going to the temple, out on the streets doing Harinam. They are not so advanced. But if you have a long beard, emaciated body, and are deep in the forest, then you must be advanced. So Prabhupada is debunking that idea. That the devotee engaged in all kinds of activities for the service of the Lord is actually truly renounced, as we know. So thus he makes this statement. Nor is there a difference, to establish that we should not think, by these external circumstances one's advancement or not. Okay? 32. He is a perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, sees the true equality of all beings, in both their happiness and distress, O Arjuna. So here Krishna is explaining how the yogi understands the position of the soul in the material world. They're all the same, equal, right? What we got from Nishkam Karma Yoga, this sameness and equanimity, we see again here in Ashtanga Yoga. So they see and act equally. Action being the key word. What is our activity towards all? They see it all as a function of one's karma. So they never treat anyone poorly, even one who's treating themselves poorly. They don't reciprocate. So their actions are guided by this nice control. So from the yogi's own experience, he knows that the cause of happiness and distress is one's past activities. And Prabhupada summarizes again, very post-it note worthy statement here. What is the source of distress? Forgetfulness of Krishna. And what is the source of happiness? Remembrance of Krishna. Could it be any more simple? More straightforward? Source of distress? Forgetfulness of Krishna. Source of happiness? Remembering Krishna. That is it. That is it. So powerful. Prabhupada goes on to state that the greatest of philanthropists is one who gives Krishna. Because why? That is a source of happiness. The greatest yogi is one who sees that the suffering is due to forgetting Krishna and tries to engage them in Krishna consciousness. So an Ashtanga yogi understands the cause of suffering. But the pure devotee tries to solve one's suffering. The Ashtanga Yoga knows it is separation of Krishna. The pure devotee tries to do something about it in helping them remember Krishna. And that's certainly the position of Srila Prabhupada, who could have stayed in Vrindavan, in bliss, like the Ashtanga Yogi staying in the forest in bliss. But he left his own comforts for the benefit of others. That is philanthropy. That is mercy, magnanimity. And so these are the symptoms. These 5 verses describe the symptoms or the results of the perfectly executed Ashtanga Yoga. The sameness, equality. Same super soul. Not different. Dog doesn't have a different super soul than the human. All the same. Now, Arjuna's response. Arjuna said, "Oh Madhusudana, the system of yoga which you have summarized appears impractical and unendurable to me, for the mind is restless and unsteady." Arjuna is saying no. Can't do it. Prabhupada comments that this is 5,000 years ago. He was such a skilled archer with intense concentration that he could be looking indirectly at the spinning fish and pierce its eye with an arrow. Such extraordinary concentration that requires. But he's saying this? Impossible. Can't happen. The ability to see Yudhishthira Maharaj and Duryodhana equally, like Krishna is explaining. Can't do it. So if Arjuna 5,000 years ago could not do it, and now Kali Yuga has progressed even further, what is our hope? Seeing friend and enemy equal. By this dint of yogic meditation, it's not possible. The mind cannot be controlled. Why is it so hard, he says? The mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong. Oh Krishna, and to subdue it, I think it is more difficult than controlling the wind. So Arjuna gives 4 reasons. The mind is restless. It goes everywhere. It's turbulent. It moves quickly. It's obstinate. So stubborn. And unbreakable. Very strong. So these describe the mind. So to control something that is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and strong is not easy. He says it's easier to capture the wind. How can we stop the wind? Do we have any tools to control the wind? He says it's easier to control that than it is to control my own mind. So this makes this process impractical, because the basis, the foundation of Ashtanga Yoga is to bring the mind under control. Right? We've been saying that for the last 2 weeks. This is the basis of this process. And so Arjuna is saying, because of that, it's not practical. Now, Srila Prabhupada, in the purport, gives us the practical means. The easiest way to control the mind, as suggested by Lord Chaitanya, is chanting Hare Krishna. So the easy way to control the mind, chant Hare Krishna. Engage in Krishna, and the mind will never wander to lesser things. These artificial means to control the mind are not practical. So Arjuna is saying in these last 2 verses that controlling the mind with intelligence is too hard. So now Krishna is going to answer Arjuna's statement. If controlling the mind is possible, how it can be done. So Krishna says, Lord Krishna said, "O mighty armed son of Kunti, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind, but it is possible by suitable practice and by detachment." It's hard, but doable. How is it doable? By practice and detachment. 2 things, practice and detachment. And what is the practice? In this age, going to the forest is not the practical practice. So what can we do? We can follow Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Shmaranam, the 9 processes of devotional service. And Prabhupada emphasizes the importance of hearing, Shravanam. The more we hear, the more we become attracted to Krishna. And the more attracted we become, the more our mind naturally focuses. It happens automatically. It's like a magnet. When you have a magnet, the pieces of metal automatically come to the magnet. You don't have to put any extra endeavor. Just place the magnet in the presence of the metal and it will come. Similarly, Krishna is so attractive that the mind will naturally be attracted and be filled with thoughts of Krishna. So one doesn't have to go through this very difficult process to try to control it. It happens naturally. So detachment occurs by attachment. And Prabhupada says that this hearing, in this purport, it is a very powerful transcendental method for purging the mind of all misgivings. Again, very powerful transcendental method for purging the mind of all misgivings. How many of us would like to purge the mind of all the craziness that exists within it? How to purge it? Hear, Shravanam, hearing about Krishna. When the mind begins to wander and gets filled with some bad thoughts and becomes turbulent, pick up Krishna book and start reading about Krishna's pastimes. That is the means to purge the mind of all of these things. And Prabhupada says another very important statement here towards the end of the purport. Hearing of the transcendental activities of the Lord is therefore expert treatment for the mad mind. Hearing of the transcendental activities of Lord Krishna is therefore expert treatment for the mad mind. When the mind starts to wander, become unraveled, hear more about Krishna, and it'll naturally become subdued. So we should try to increase our attraction for hearing. It will bring us to the highest levels of Krishna consciousness. So this is the practice. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Shmaranam. And what is detachment? Well, when we engage the mind in Krishna by the practice, the sadhana, it automatically detaches. So yes, practice and detachment are the two means to control the mind, but the best practice is what we need to know. This Ashtanga yoga practice is very difficult, but hearing and chanting makes it very easy, or simple at least. So focusing on activities of Krishna is so fulfilling that the mind will naturally detach. So again, detachment occurs by attachment to Krishna. A concept we have spoken about repeatedly. So Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur comments that even an advanced disease can be cured by two things: an expert doctor and good execution of the treatment, disciplined execution of the treatment. So how to cure the disease of the turbulent, wandering, contaminated mind? We need an expert doctor. That is the Guru. And we need disciplined execution of the treatment. That is our sadhana, the practice and detachment. So yes, whatever is afflicting our mind, and we keep falling victim to it, and keep succumbing and engaging the senses in things we know we should not do. What is the cure? Take shelter of Guru, the expert doctor, and follow the treatment in a disciplined way. Practice our sadhana very nicely. Okay? 36. For one whose mind is unbridled and self-realization is difficult work, but one whose mind is controlled and who strives by appropriate means is assured of success. That is my opinion. So Krishna's second response to Arjuna's rebuttal is, yes, one must control the mind in order to be successful. But by practice and detachment, you can do it. It's doable. So, but don't, Prabhupada talks about in the purport, Don't try to do bhakti while enjoying the world. It's like trying to light a fire while pouring water on it. I'm trying to light the fire of Krishna love. But at the same time, I'm pouring water on it by letting the senses enjoy some material activities. So don't do that. We must stop these material activities. So if the mind is unbridled, then yes, it's very difficult. But if the mind is controlled, one's assured of success. Prabhupada makes another beautiful statement. So many quotes that are so amazing. He says, yoga practice without mental control is a waste of time. If you don't control the mind, it's a waste of time. And then he says, at the end, a Krishna conscious person easily achieves the result of yoga practice without separate endeavor. But a yoga practitioner cannot achieve the success without being Krishna conscious. So here Prabhupada gives us what Krishna is ultimately going to say. That a Krishna conscious person can easily achieve these results of a controlled mind, meditation, absorption, and trance by Krishna consciousness. Ashtanga Yoga, very difficult. By Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada says, easily achieves that yoga, that result, without any separate endeavor. So now we know how to do it. Yes, the mind is all these things. Arjuna is right. It is more difficult than the wind. But with a very powerful tool, it can be had, and that powerful tool is devotional service to Krishna. So, now Arjuna is going to ask, well, what happens if you start but you don't finish? What is the result? So we can see this nice flow in this dialogue in this chapter. So Arjuna said, "Oh Krishna, I missed one comment on the prior verse. It's okay. It's notable that in verse 35, Krishna is referring to Arjuna as the son of Kunti. And he calls him Mahabaho, this mighty armed. And it's important because Krishna is referring to, the great position of Arjuna, the great strength that he is. And by that strength, he should be able to practice this. So the practice one should take, we must put forth our great ability, whatever we have. And by the mercy of Guru and Krishna, it will become fulfilled. Like that sparrow had great determination, but maybe not the greatest of capacity to drain the ocean. But it still happened by that determination. Okay? Sorry, so back to 37 now. Arjuna said, "O Krishna, what is the destination of the unsuccessful transcendentalist, who in the beginning takes to the process of self-realization with faith, but later desists to worldly mindedness, and thus does not attain perfection in mysticism?" So what happens if one doesn't finish the process? Prabhupada explains there are three paths of self-realization: the jnana process, the ashtanga process, and bhakti. In each, one must realize the constitutional position of the soul in relationship to Krishna and how to act in it. This Sambandha Abhideya Prayoja. So Arjuna is asking here that Krishna can confirm again what he said in the second chapter, that there is no loss. So falling victim to the sense desires is likely, given our conditioning to matter. So Prabhupada says that one must declare war on Maya. Another wonderful statement. He says that one must declare war on Maya, the illusory energy. Maya is going to make the jnana and ashtanga process very difficult, because she's going to attack from all sides, trying to allure one from the path. But bhakti is such a powerful process. It has the potency the strength to withstand the allurements of Maya. And thus it makes it very practical. But Arjuna's question is very practical here, because the allurements being so strong, it may be possible that one starts but doesn't finish because they fall victim to those allurements. So what happens? Almighty Arm Krishna, does not such a man who is bewildered from the path of transcendence fall away from both spiritual and material success and perish like a riven cloud with no position in any sphere? So Arjuna is saying, or asking, if they don't finish, aren't they kind of stuck? Because they gave up all the material world and whatever limited happiness is there, and they didn't achieve the completion of the spiritual process, so they didn't achieve the spiritual happiness. So they basically float away into this nothing. They become neither materially happy nor spiritually happy. So how aren't they completely lost? This is the question. Again, Srila Prabhupada in the purport speaks about this step-by-step process is many, many births to take to perfect. Not one lifetime, but many, many births, which is going to ultimately get thrown out. So what happens? So Krishna says, Arjuna continues with his third statement here. This is my doubt, O Krishna. I ask you to dispel it immediately. But for you, no one is found who can destroy this doubt. So only Krishna is the destroyer of doubts. He is the perfect knower. All of us else are dependent on Krishna for knowledge. So Arjuna knows only Krishna can dispel his doubts. So now Krishna will dispel his doubts. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O son of Pratha, a transcendentalist engaged in auspicious activities does not meet with destruction, either in this world or in the spiritual world. One who does good, my friend, is never overcome by evil. So as we know, there is never any loss in spiritual endeavor. It is an eternal benefit. This is the path to immortality. Material endeavors require completion to get any result. If you don't fully cook the meal is not satisfying. It must be completed for success. If you're building a chair and you have 3 legs complete but one is not, the chair will not stand. You need to complete it in order for it to be successful. So the question here is, if one doesn't do their duties, their prescribed duties, and takes to the spiritual path, and they don't complete it, aren't they doomed? Because they suffer the results of having not done their duties, but they didn't complete the spiritual path. Are they not doomed? No, Krishna says. Anything done in Krishna consciousness is eternally ours. They do not meet any destruction. So, even if one doesn't complete it, they'll carry on from their next life. Even if I have a bad body now, due to the reactions of my past duties, the unfulfilling of my past duties, I can still take the bhakti. So there is no loss. Krishna says in this verse, my friend, and Srila Baladev Vidya-bhushan comments that Krishna is showing very special affection to Arjuna, like this, in this very fatherly way, lovingly father way, to try to guide his friend. 41. The unsuccessful yogi, after many, many years of enjoyment on the planets of the pious living entities, is born into a family of righteous people, or into a family of rich aristocracy. So, this is, if we have a little bit of progress in this path, what happens? So one gets a rich family and righteous birth. So why? Well, they fell because of their sense desires. So Krishna allows them to enjoy some very splendid material happiness. Still very limited, but relatively speaking. So they can go to the heavenly planets and fly in celestial airplanes and be in the beautiful gardens and, enjoy some material opulences. Because that was their desire. That's why they fell from the process. So Krishna is kindly reciprocating with them. Right? So they did some yoga, but then they ultimately wanted to go back to material enjoyment. So Krishna says, okay, I'll give you heavenly pleasures. He's rewarding them very nicely. But after enjoying that, and one becomes distasteful of that sense enjoyment, They return to earth, and they're born in a family of righteousness, righteous brahmanas, at least good, pious people, and very wealthy. And why? Because these nice facilities then allow one to be somewhat comfortable and thus focus on the real purpose of life. There's not such a hard struggle for existence. So this is the result if one makes a little bit of progress in this process. Now, what happens if one makes a lot of progress? Or, if unsuccessful after long practice of yoga, he takes his birth in a family of transcendentalists who are surely great in wisdom. Certainly, such a birth is rare in this world. So, if we don't make progress and don't complete after long effort, one gives birth in a Vaishnava family. And this is very rare. And why it's so fortunate? What is the benefit? One gets the inclination, the impetus to practice bhakti at a very early age. And Srila Prabhupada very sweetly refers to his own birth in a Vaishnava family. His father, Gaur Mohan Dey, was such a wonderful Vaishnava. And of course, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who was born into the family of Bhakti Vinod Thakur, who is pictured here. It is a very rare and very great fortunate opportunity to appear in such a family. So Krishna continues, on taking such a birth, he revives the divine consciousness of his previous life, and he again tries to make further progress in order to achieve complete success, O son of Kuru. So we begin where we left off. This is why we see sometimes people come to Krishna consciousness and they very quickly make progress. It's because they had already made some progress in a prior life. And now they're carrying on, beginning where they left off. So, and Prabhupada gives the example of Jada Bharat, King Bharat. His story very beautifully described in Srimad Bhagavatam. Speaks about his ruling as a king. Thus we know as Bharat Varsha. But then he succumbed to the desire of the deer, and he became a deer. But in his third life, he became very focused. So he picked up where he left off. In the form of a deer, he was fortunate to remember his position in bhakti, and thus was regained it in his third life. And he became very clear in his path. And this is pictured here to the right. 44. By virtue of the divine consciousness of his previous life, he automatically becomes attracted to the yogic principles. Even without seeking them, such an inquisitive transcendentalist stands always above the ritualistic principles of the scriptures. So 44. So the attraction to spiritual life is automatically there because of the prior progress. So nothing is lost. Again, no loss or diminution you see here. 45. And when a yogi engages himself with sincere endeavor in making further progress, being washed of all contamination, then automatically achieving perfection after many, many births of practice, he attains the supreme goal. So one must work very hard. Many, many births of practice. Because if you fall early, you have to overcome the allurements of a rich family. And, the material comforts that may be there in order to make spiritual progress. So the endeavor is very key. One must work with sincere endeavor. Because once you fall and you become trapped again in material desires, overcoming them in a rich aristocratic family, one may be disciplined. So it takes sincere endeavor. But ultimately the goal is reached. Now Krishna concludes this chapter by saying, a yogi is greater than the ascetic, greater than the empiricist, greater than the fruitive worker. Therefore, O Arjuna, in all circumstances, be a yogi. So the yogi is linking our consciousness with Krishna. And this is the greatest according to Krishna. The karma yogi links to Krishna by activity, links their activities in thoughts of Krishna. The jnani yogi is linking via empirical study. And the bhakti yogi is linking via devotional relationship, devotional service. So now, the yogi is greater, but which of the yogis is best? We have these different types of yogis. So which is the best? Krishna says, and of all the yogis, the one with great faith who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendental loving service to me, he is the most intimately united with me in yoga, and is the highest of all. That is my opinion. Now Krishna gives his opinion after having described all of the different yoga processes. He says, who is the highest of all? It is the Bhakta yogi. All yoga processes are meant to bring one to bhakti, full Bhagavan realization. This is the culmination of all yoga processes. They must, where Ashtanga yoga process ends is where bhakti begins. They all must bring one ultimately to bhakti in order for it to be successful. So we can go directly to bhakti, or we can take the long, arduous, and difficult step-by-step process. So how can one then come directly to bhakti? That's obviously the clear choice. Only by the mercy of a pure devotee. By the mercy of a pure devotee, one can come to bhakti directly. So I just wanted to read the third paragraph that Srila Prabhupada summarizes this yoga ladder. It's a little bit long, but just bear with me. It's a nice summary. The culmination of all kinds of yoga practices lies in bhakti yoga. All other yogas are meant to come to the point of bhakti in bhakti yoga. Yoga actually means bhakti yoga. All other yogas are progressions towards the destination of bhakti yoga. From the beginning of karma yoga to the end of bhakti yoga is a long way to self-realization. Karma yoga without fruit of results is the beginning of the path. When karma yoga increases in knowledge and renunciation, the stage is called jnana yoga. When jnana yoga increases in meditation on the supersoul by different physical processes and the mind is on him, it is called Ashtanga yoga. And one surpasses Ashtanga yoga, comes to the point of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, it is called Bhakti yoga, the culmination. Factually, Bhakti yoga is the ultimate goal. But to analyze Bhakti yoga minutely, one has to understand these other yogas. The yogi who is progressive is therefore on the true path of eternal good fortune. One who sticks to a particular point and does not make further progress is called by that particular name: karma yogi, jnana yogi, dhyana yogi, raja yogi, hatha yogi. But if one is fortunate enough to come to the point of bhakti yoga, it is understood that he has surpassed all other yogas. Therefore, to become Krishna consciousness is the highest stage of yoga. Just as when we speak of the Himalayan, we refer to the highest mountains, of which the highest peak, Mount Everest, is considered to be the culmination. So then he says, it is by great fortune that one comes to Krishna consciousness on the path of bhakti yoga. So it is our great fortune. And what is bhakti? Loving devotional service. Service that is an expression of our love to Krishna. It is an active endeavor, an activity, and it is shown to us by the prior acharyas, following in the mood of the great devotees. This is Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam. This definition of pure devotional service. So now we'll begin discussing chapter 7. And chapter 7 through 12, Krishna is going to speak about bhakti. Now he's established this as the ultimate and highest of all. And now he's going to dedicate the remainder of this the next section in its entirety to discussing bhakti yoga. He's given them all, and now we'll focus on the ultimate. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda ki jai. Hare Krishna, everyone. So, now, any comments or questions, corrections, clarifications?
again, as always, thank you for such a wonderful class and such a wonderful section. There's a lot to absorb here, and it's very wonderful, and I love being immersed in it constantly. My question is, so we're taking the test next week. Have we determined that we're going to do this at Temple? And are we then not meeting for